It's the nightcap here at the NCATA National Championship semifinals. Number 4 Quinnipiac versus number 1 Baylor. And let's go ahead and look at the scoreboard right now so far in the schedule. We just saw number 3 Gannon defeat number 2 Azusa Pacific 267.345 to Azusa Pacific's 262.245. We'd like to welcome you Matt Side now, Knight Uretsky with Alexis Cross. And again, this is a good one. Number 4 Quinnipiac versus number 1 Baylor. Both these programs have been with the acrobatics and tumbling community since the inception of the sport.
Two strong teams. We're going to see a battle tonight, and looking forward to seeing who shows up.
Absolutely. So we're going to get started right away here at Matthew Knight Arena, and we're going to start with the compulsory event. And the compulsory event is an event which both teams will perform the exact same skills. There's going to be 4 heats in the acro. In the compulsory event, there's going to be the acro, the pyramid, the toss, and the tumble. We're going to start with the acro right now, and here's Quinnipiac.
Again, as Knight mentioned, these skills are the same across the board. It provides a level playing field and a really strong showing of execution. Here we have a reverse toss hands, and we're going to see a tuck off here. Looking for really strong, solid landings from the tops that are supported by the catchers and the bases on the bottom. Moving to the second section here, and this is a straddle position into an inversion. Here the judges are going to be looking for really straight body positions from the tip of their toes all the way down through the base's feet. You see a slight bobble on the left side there at the top. And the last sequence involved in the compulsory acro heat. A switch up to an arabesque fold down. Here we're looking for really square positions, making sure those feet don't sway from the left to the right. Saw a little bit of that, but something the judges may or may not take.
So that was Quinnipiac in the acro heat, and let's go ahead and look at the highlights for yesterday for Quinnipiac. They knocked off the home team, the Oregon Ducks, who are the 5 seed.
You see some energy into the tumbling there with a strong landing. Here we have a glimpse of the team event, the organized chaos that we'll see finish the meet in the celebration that I'm sure we will see from the winning team tonight, depending on who that is.
So that was Quinnipiac yesterday, defeating number 5 Oregon, who is the home team. Quinnipiac had defeated Oregon at home earlier in the season. It was a meet that came down to the very end. It was a meet that Quinnipiac won by 0.8, but they came here into the national championships, had a 3-point lead going into the team event, and then they were able to build off of that in the team event and got 3 more points to really cap off the night for the Bobcats. Now Baylor University is going to come onto the mat, and they're going to execute the acro heat in the compulsory event.
Again, we will see the same skills here that we just saw from the Quinnipiac Bobcats in the compulsory acro heat. These judges again are looking for execution. Starting with the reverse toss hands. Great height and control, great synchronization, and strong tuck-offs. A little bit of a dip in the landing on the right side, but beautiful body positions headed into that toss. And go to the straddle positions. We're looking for these feet to be above the hips and to stay above the hips as we rotate into the inverted position. Very solid structures and landings. Compulsory acro has the ability to change and evolve as the sport grows, as the student athletes are learning new skills and perfecting new skills. Our coaches then submit that to the scoring committee and make adjustments over the years. Great showing from Baylor Bears.
So that was Baylor in the acro heat in the compulsory event, and let's go ahead and look at the highlights for Baylor from yesterday. They were the 1 seed, and so they had to face off against the 8-seeded Converse Valkyries, and Baylor doing what Baylor does. They're right there. Bailey Humphrey, Jordan Grenler, the single hand-in-hand split.
And we have the compulsory tumbling that we'll see here in just a moment into our solo passes. The power in these tumbling passes and the controlled landings. Goodness, strong point for the Baylor Bears. Again, a glimpse at the team event. A little bit different for every team in the NCATA. Really get to see some personality.
So that was Baylor yesterday, and let's go ahead and introduce Fee Mulkey, who is the pioneer of the sport. She describes herself as the grandma of acrobatics and tumbling. 85-2 in her career at Baylor, 118-5 in her career. She has won every single national championship since the sport's inception. She won a few of them at the University of Oregon, and then she has won every one since heading over to Baylor 8 seasons ago.
Here we have Quinnipiac coming out for the second heat of the compulsory event with the toss heat. I'm sorry, the pyramid. Synchronization is a part of every heat in the compulsory event. And that is from top to bottom, making sure that everything is happening at the same time. When coaches are choosing personnel for this event, their aesthetics is a part of it. And making sure that everything looks similar with height, and the height of those dismounts is another thing to consider. Making sure if you have a really tall base on one side and a smaller on the other, oftentimes it becomes more and more difficult for those tops to then hit the bases at the same time. Taking a look at the replay, you see really solid structures up top here, something that Quinnipiac is focusing on today, I would imagine, because it is a strong point of the Baylor Bears, and you'll see them come into that straddle position, extend into the high straddle, and very solid, limited to no movement. Arms stay up by the ears for the bases, and no steps are taken until everybody's feet is on the ground.
So that was Quinnipiac in the pyramid heat in the compulsory event. And if you're unfamiliar to acrobatics and tumbling, let's just walk you through the meet format. So there's going to be 6 events total. We start with the compulsory, which are the building blocks for acrobatics and tumbling. Then we'll have the acro and pyramid events. Those will wrap up the first half. There'll be a 15-minute halftime in between, and then we'll have the second half, which are the triple Ts, the toss, the tumbling, and the team events. And all the scoring is going to be done live by the officials. They're not going to benefit from replay. They're not going to benefit from slow motion. They'll be scoring it live. And at the end of every single event, they'll score up the scores, and they'll announce it in front of everybody. Here's Baylor now coming out for the pyramid in the compulsory.
We definitely see a lot of confidence from the Baylor Bears tonight. Synchronization not only in the smooth mount of those tops, but also in the shrug from the bases, something unique to this program. And beautiful releases. That's something that the judges are scoring here, is the quality of the release and making sure that those tops actually are mid-air and lose contact with their middles to qualify that as a release skill. Here we have the lift into the straddle position and into the full rotation dismount off the top. Great compulsory so far from both teams.
Absolutely. And again, in the compulsory event, each team are going to be performing the exact same skills. And with that being said, the start values in the compulsory event are all going to be 10. So there's 40 possible points in the compulsory event. Each team has a different way they view the compulsory event, but a lot of them view it as the way to set the tone in a meet. And right now, Quinnipiac's going to come back out, and this is going to be the toss heat in the compulsory event.
This is most likely the only time today you'll see a tuck toss. It is a basic skill. Compulsory is built on the basics of acrobatics and tumbling, combining the disciplines of gymnastics and cheerleading in a way that allows for deduction-based scoring based on execution. So here we're going to see a tuck position into a kick out and high catches from the bases. Over there on the left side, you saw a slight rotation from my point of view, a slight shift backwards, although it didn't look like any of the bases took a step. We'll take a look at it on the replay. But most often, things that we see over here are not seen by our judges, and vice versa. So here we've got great stretches from both the tops by their ears. And yeah, there on that left side, you would never know that she had shifted to the back. No steps were taken, it looks like. The back base did a great job adjusting, shifting her weight backwards to make room for that top. Here we can see it again as she comes through. Back base shifts back, holds it tight, and that front base is able to hang on tightly and accommodate for that slight error. Hiding it well.
So that was Quinnipiac in the toss heat in the compulsory event. Baylor is now going to come out onto the mat, and here's them performing the exact same skills in the toss heat.
Again, we'll see the compulsory toss be a tuck toss here. One thing to watch for is that as the tops come off of the toss, you'll see the tips of their toes leave the base's hands as the last thing. At that moment, they want to be stacked directly on top of themselves to avoid any sort of deviation. Beautiful, beautiful skills from the Baylor Bears. Their catches are always impressive. Up, not too high, not up in their throat, but not down at their belly button, right nicely in between. And as these tops come around, you'll see they really don't move. Right there, sticks really strong into that base. The left one was just a bit higher than the right. You can see that top's feet kick out just a little bit sooner, which provides her a little bit more lift. Take a look at the left side right there. Because she's higher, slightly slower rotation, little bit of a sink issue, but nothing major, and overall very pretty.
So that was the Baylor Bears in the toss heat. One of my favorite things that Baylor does is their counter will actually move their arms with the tosses, which I think is a really fun aspect that really adds to the skill of the toss.
It is fun to see the quirks that the different teams have, and sometimes it's just what they do. Other times it has a real purpose, and you'll see teams counting and emphasizing certain counts that is very strategic and something that team needs to perform at their best. We're now getting into compulsory tumbling here. The basic skills many of these athletes have had since a young age and had time to perfect, but this is the mental game here in acrobatics and tumbling. Being able to execute these skills perfectly. You're watching for hops or steps on the bottom as the feet hit the ground, as well as feet being together as they come over the top in these tuck skills. Quinnipiac has chosen for their sticks to be with their arms straight up in the air. You'll see variation across the programs of what they choose to do, depending on the strength of the athletes, depending on the history of the program. It varies across the board, but isn't specified by the judging staff. Here we go into the layout skill, looking for no hops. You did see quite a few across there, but overall great body positions and something they seem to be pleased with.
So that was Quinnipiac in the tumbling heat in the compulsory event. And let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time.
We're headed into the toe touch tuck. Slight timing issue. You'll see synchronization is always a part of every bit of the compulsory event. Over there on the left side, you notice their formation is set off a little bit. Some teams prefer to be in one strict line, others spread themselves and stagger a little bit. Most likely purposeful, most likely due to avoiding kicking each other, or timing too. If you can set just a bit behind the athlete next to you, you're able to watch and adjust that timing as you need to.
So that was Quinnipiac rounding out the compulsory tumbling heat. And again, we're just going to see Baylor come back out. They're going to do the tumbling heat in the compulsory event, and then that'll wrap up the compulsory event as a whole. Again, they're performing the exact same skills, and there's 40 points possible. Start values of 10 across the board. And in the compulsory event, this is a crucial moment where teams can really pick up some points, because in acrobatics and tumbling, 1 or 2 points means a lot. And in the compulsory event, you could really gain 1 or 2 points, or you could lose 1 or 2 points. So nailing the compulsory is definitely a big thing for a lot of these programs.
It also sets the standard for the meet. We talk a lot about the mentality that goes into it, and if your team shows up strong for compulsory, you demonstrate the confidence in your basic skills, it lends itself well to the rest of the meet. We now have the Baylor Bears in their compulsory tumbling. Again, we're going to see those same skills, starting off with a standing tuck. And you see Baylor's chosen an arm position that's more like a high V. Slight timing error, a couple hops there in the middle. Take a look at the athlete's knees as they come over the top. That's another thing the judges are looking for, which tends to be the most challenging. Knees together over the top. Feet's always a given, but the knees is challenging for the handspring. Headed into the layout, we're looking for timing. It will really set them apart here. Oh, and it is beautiful. Couple hops on the landing, but overall really pretty layout position there. So in acro and tumbling, a lot of times, we'll see this again in the replay, you'll see skills show up in different ways and in different heats and events. So this layout position that we see at the end of compulsory tumbling demonstrates the shift in the rotation between the hips and the head. We'll talk about that again in the toss event. And some of these athletes probably participate in the toss event and vice versa. So you'll see, although this is tumbling and toss is a portion of, is qualified as an acro skill, the elements of those show up throughout the sport. And really lend itself to these versatile athletes who are able to be involved in many heats. There we see a really beautiful picture from number 27 of the shift, that quick rotation between her hips and her head. She did have a slight hop on the landing, but overall her body was landed pretty straight up and down.
So that'll do it for the compulsory event. All 4 heats are completed. They're tallying up the scores right now, and we're going to step aside and take a break here at the NCATA National Championships. But when we come back, we're going to announce the scores for the compulsory and introduce the acro event. Welcome back to Math Unite Arena. Just getting started here at number 4, Quinnipiac, and number 1, Baylor. And let's go ahead and look at the scores for the compulsory event. Baylor winning the acro, the pyramid, and the tumbling. But Quinnipiac, and Baylor tied in the toss. Baylor currently 38.600, Quinnipiac 38.300. So we got ourselves a really close one. Let's go ahead and introduce the next event, which is the acro.
And next up is the acro event.
This begins the optional portion of the meet.
Each team will compete different skills with different possible start values.
There will be between 2 and 4 athletes on the floor in each heat.
Heat 1 has 5 elements, Heat 2 has 6 elements, and Heat 3 has 7 elements.
The start value is determined by the difficulty and combination of each sequence.
This event shows power, strength, and balance to look for stability of the structure and position of the top.
So those are the rules for the acro event, and here we're going to see Quinnipiac out for the 5-element acro heat.
The acros are built on several different elements, again the 5, 6, and 7 element, and there are requirements of what elements are featured in these heats. However, their requirements are based on class, difficulty of those elements. So there is an A, B, C, D, and E level element. All are worth different point values and bring you to that hopefully 10.0 start value that we'll see from both teams today. Here we have a beautiful planche position. That is intentional, that the top's toes are coming over her head. Is a very challenging skill through to a press down into the pike position and a strong, solid dismount. That was beautiful and smooth. You can tell the continuity of that skill was well executed. We'll take a look at it again on the replay from the Quinnipiac Bobcats.
Yeah, and again, initially you're going to see that's Cassidy Osher right there. She is an NCATA All-American as a top right there.
We have a beautiful full-off dismount. It's easy. That's a risky position being straight on to the judges, but they chose it for a reason because she is beautifully landing straight in front of her base. Here we have this hand-in-hand sequence with some extremely difficult skills. Beautiful positions. You see limited wobbles there, a support base in the back. Again, that planche position is intentional. There is the option for that to just be a more standard handstand position, and we'll see a variety of it all today. But the transition all the way through to the pike position, again, very beautiful, strong hold, toes high, and they look happy about it.
That was Mia Rose King, the sophomore top for Quinnipiac. She does a really great job with that pike position because you only need 90 degrees, but she goes to about 45 degrees in her angles. Baylor is now going to come back out, and it's going to be the acro 5-element heat for the Baylor Bears, and a little different than Quinnipiac. They're only going to send out 2 women onto the mat, and that's Riley Chimwalla and Cam Kitchens.
And we'll see these two quite a bit today. Power players for the Baylor Bears.
Excuse me, this is Emily Tobin.
And Emily Tobin with a beautiful hand-in-hand position. I mentioned this is more standard from the planche, but beautiful body line into the straddle press down, position. And a bit of a unique dismount there. Dropping right off the back with a twist from the base. And we have a solid walk-in. You can see the top's heels are resting on the shoulders of the base. And that is intentional. It's an added level of stability. Good stuff from the Baylor Bears. Take a look at it on the replay. So this skill, the climb up there, you see there's a 180-degree rotation of the shoulders of the top. And that does increase the point value of this versus just climbing up from the back, which we may see at some point today. An unassisted high hand-in-hand, again, a very difficult skill, and executed really well. These teams clearly came to play today and are fighting for a chance for the championship.
And again, that's Emily Tobin, the top, and Riley Chimwalla, the base. Those two have been working together at Baylor for a little bit, and they have been really, really impressive together. Chimwalla, a 2-time NCATA All-American, and Tobin also a 2-time NCATA All-American these past 2 years for the Baylor Bears. Quinnipiac's now coming back out. This is the 6-element acro heat.
6 elements, we add an element. Again, there are requirements as to the difficulty of those elements in order to check all the boxes, but coaches and athletes do have the ability to put them together in the way that best suits their team. Here we have a walk-in to an extended foot-to-hand position and a 360s twist off the front. A little bit of a deviation there. You want to see the top's head be right on top of her feet the whole time, and they did sweep out to the left just a little bit. We go into another straddle position, brief wobble there, and here's the mentality again, to recover, to get to a strong, sturdy position in order to support this top into a difficult skill. It doesn't leave a lot of room for variation. They did throw a support on that base there. You can see her fingers extending all the way up, almost to the wrists of the top, in order to be there in case her weight shifts onto her palms. We'll take a look at that again in the replay. Not quite as strong of a showing, I would say, there in the 6-element. However, the fight of these teams are there. Nobody's going home easy today. A bit of a feet separation there. You'll also see the athletes who are standing on the ground, oftentimes counters, and they're actually signifying the 1, 2, 3 count. Every element in the acro event does have to be held for the 1, 2, 3 count. A lack of hold will result in a deduction. And oftentimes you do have athletes putting the fingers up there to say, hey, we're doing it. In case there's any questions, the 1, 2, 3 Mississippi, it's happening.
So that was Quinnipiac in the 6-element acro heat. Baylor now going to come out onto the mat and have their turn at the 6-element. This time we're actually going to see Cam Kitchens for the Baylor Bears. She's going to be working with Faith Core, and then they'll switch it up, and we'll see Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Gremler. So that's Faith Core, the base right there.
Incredible, incredible, straight to an extended position. Very strong, very smooth. You can tell the chemistry of these two athletes in both the pairs on the floor. We're going to see that today. And that is common in the acro event, to see two pairs that end up working well together. Here we have really an incredible sequence. Beautiful control into a low hand-in-hand position. We then have our athlete shifting onto one arm with incredible stability and a clean dismount.
That is just so impressive from the Baylor Bears.
We talked earlier night about the innovation in this sport, and that right there is a wonderful picture of it, where I don't believe that, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't believe a skill like that has ever been competed up until this year.
Absolutely, and it was Jordan Grenler, the freshman, who came in and had that skill set. She proposed it to Coach Fee Mulkey, and she was able to get that approved for the season, and man, they've been doing it all year, and it's so impressive.
It really is, and it's exciting for the sport and for spectators who are learning this sport, who are coming to understand it. It's cool that over time we're going to continue to see different things. We're going to continue to see new skills that are brought into the sport that lend itself well to the growth of the community that is building around acrobatics and tumbling. You see there on the replay, I mean, it is so incredibly solid. And just look at that point of contact between two women, the size of your palm. That's it. And the stability there is just incredible. We're now here with the Quinnipiac Bobcats, headed into the 7-element acro heat, the last here for the Quinnipiac Bobcats in the acro event.
And here we're going to see the top of Mia Sandillo.
Wow, an impressive one-to-one lib position there. That is that's an element that comes from the cheer background. Most often, though, you don't see women completing it that successfully one-to-one. A great example here is specialty. A lot of times our tops and our bases do have a specialty for more acrobatic backgrounds. It is inverted. It's upside down. It's handstands. Here we saw an incredibly strong sequence of non-inverted, vertically structured elements. That was a beautiful inverted press down, which are feet to hand. Depending on how you structure those, they can be fit together in a way that scores just as well as the inverted elements.
Let's look at the replay one more time. And
that's one of my favorite skills. I just love the way it looks. The 360 up to the top, they fold in so nicely. And you saw that secondary base step away, so that is one base on the bottom, one top on top. You have a switch up skill. If you caught it, that athlete switched her feet on the way up. She then transitioned back into that similar position. We'll see the 360 spin down, a great solid line all the way up top to bottom there, and finishing with the inverted position.
So that was Quinnipiac in the 7-element acro heat. And now Baylor's going to come back onto the mat, and this will be their 7-element acro heat. And we're going to see, again, Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grenler.
Back out again. Again, that chemistry, it's real, and when you have it, it's hard not to use it. And they really do use it to their advantage here in an unassisted, straight to a high hand-in-hand position, incredibly strong, through to the press down. And look at the way that they transition fluidly into a low hand-in-hand. And again, over into the one-handed hand-in-hand, a slight adjustment. What you don't see from this far away is the miniature, teeny tiny adjustments that are happening throughout every single one of these skills. You then have them showcasing that not only are they good at the inverted skills, but they're also great at the feet to hand skills as well.
So that was Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grenler with the 7-element acro heat. Look at them go again.
Here we have the high hand-in-hand. Slight wobbles there in the middle, but for this to be an unassisted skill, it's absolutely beautiful. We've got the side look into the straddle position. You can see the base's shoulders shrugged straight up to her ears, providing the most solid platform possible. That transition there, the amount of intricacy that goes into that base being able to dip straight down, keeping the top's weight stacked on top of her. I imagine most of us have probably balanced a broom on our hand before, and thinking about how difficult that is, and then realizing that they're doing that here times 1,000 with a human being is incredible. Finishing it out with a walk-in and a pop-off.
So that was Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grenler Humphrey, a sophomore, Grenler, a freshman. They're going to be doing it for a long time for the Baylor Bears. A couple more years in their career. It's going to be exciting to see where their careers take off. But that'll do it for the acro event. And we're going to step aside and take a break. But when we come back, we'll announce the scores for the acro and introduce the pyramid event. 2 events are in the books. We finished the compulsory, and now we have the scores for the acro event. So in the scores, Baylor, a clean sweep across the board, 9.850 in heat number 1, 9.750 for Quinnipiac. In the acro 6 element, Baylor 9.875, Quinnipiac 9.700. The acro 7 element, 9.850 to 9.800. That brings us to 68.175 for Baylor, 67.550 for Quinnipiac. And now we're going to introduce the pyramid event.
The pyramid event is coming up.
In this event, you will see pyramids that are 3 levels high.
This event has 3 different heats with different requirements for each.
Heat 1 must have an inversion, Heat 2 must be synchronized, and Heat 3 is the open heat.
The start value of each heat is determined by the difficulty and combination of the structure, entry, dismount, and top body position.
Some of the things the officials will be looking for are the positions of the tops and sturdiness of the structure.
So those are the rules for the pyramid event, and now this is Quinnipiac with the inversion pyramid, and just like the name says, there's going to be an inversion part to this pyramid.
There is, Knight, and that is the requirement of this pyramid. You'll see different variations in how it's accomplished, but here we're going to see an assisted high hand-in-hand for the inverted pyramid. Into a unique position there in the top, a split. Beautiful structure. You see incredible lines from top to bottom on the top, and a beautifully high pike there with a 180-degree dismount. I believe that was a release, and they're happy about it.
So that was Quinnipiac in the inversion pyramid heat. And let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time. And again, it's Mia Rose King being the top.
You have a smooth entrance into the pyramid. You watch them get set. Strong lift and a shrug through the shoulders to a very sturdy position up top. Slight wobbles in the hands, but if you take your eyes down to the bottom layer of this pyramid, they are solid. And it's intentional that mid-layer's feet are placed at an angle. In most of the skills that we see, transferring the weight onto the heels doesn't tend to go that well. There's no safety net. There's no ability to fight that, whereas in your toes and your fingers, it's much easier to fight the forward momentum and provide some resistance that gets you back on center.
So here's Baylor now. They're going to come out for the inversion pyramid. And again, we're going to see Bailey Humphrey and Jordan Grenler.
We'll see a similar entrance into the pyramid, although there is no assist on the second level here, just on the bottom level, and it goes straight into a high hand-in-hand unassisted and a straight fall off the front. Beautiful pyramid. They're very excited about it. We'll see it again here on the replay in a second. And a note about the scoring. The difficulty, again, can be paired in different ways. So we saw a dismount from the Quinnipiac Bobcats that was more difficult than the dismount from this pyramid. However, with the Baylor Bears not having an assist, they didn't need to make up that scoring difference by adding a harder dismount as well. So definitely teaches you a lot about the team's strengths, and there's very clearly being this duo in their inverted skills.
Absolutely, and Jordan Grenler right there, you saw her legs crossed. That's actually an optional position. She just does that to keep her legs straight. And those two are going to be working together for a long time. Again, Bailey Humphrey, she's a sophomore. She actually transferred from a community college in Arizona. She's actually from Arizona. She's from Chandler, Arizona. And she's competed mainly as a base this season, although she came to Baylor to be a tumbler, but she suffered a season-ending Achilles injury last year, and then has come back this season and has just been a base, but she's done a pretty phenomenal job being a base, and she's been an NCATA All-American, and this year she was named NCATA Specialist of the Year. Quinnipiac now coming out, and this is going to be the synchronized pyramid. So we're going to see 2 pyramids at once, and like the name says, they have to be synchronized.
They do, and it looks like these bottoms are setting up for the bridge base to this pyramid, a skill that has become a signature to acrobatics and tumbling. Requires incredible hamstring strength, great shoulder flexibility. And a lot of times our eyes are drawn to the tops. Here we see a straddle position. We're looking for very solid positions, which we see good synchronization on the dismount. And again, a lot of times our eyes are drawn to the tops of these pyramids. That's where the action's happening, right? I want to encourage everyone on this replay to just take a look at the bottoms here. They look like it's hard to see the amount of work that goes into supporting these pyramids. Obviously, there's 2 people stacked on top of them. But the amount of physical activation that it takes in the moment in order to keep your body in a strong, sturdy position, I think deserves a lot more credit than they get. The other thing to note here is that the base does stay lifted in that bridge the entire time until everyone's feet are on the ground. If at any point that base were to move her feet or to lower her hips or to set up in any different way, that is counted as a fall as well if she is to hit the ground. Watch the right here, jumps off, that base stays up until the skill is completed. A lot of times where we see this come in and make a big difference is when there is an error, when there is a fall off the top or even taking it down to the middle as well. We will oftentimes see the bridge continue to stay up as not to compound that fall with additional deductions and to continue to grab as many points as you can, even though the rest of the pyramid has not been executed correctly.
So that was Quinnipiac in the synchronized pyramid, and Quinnipiac, they're here without their coach, their head coach, Marianne Powers. We wish her well. She's back home in Connecticut. She's been dealing with breast cancer, and our thoughts and prayers go out to Coach Powers. But Quinnipiac today, they're led by Cameron Diaz, and they've been doing a really great job in the tournament. Obviously, the win against Oregon yesterday. And our thoughts and prayers go out to Marianne Powers. Baylor's coming back out, and now it's going to be the synchronized pyramid for the Baylor Bears.
Again, the requirement here for this heat is the synchronization here. However, the teams do have the autonomy to choose their best skill, the one that they feel is the best synchronized, the one that demonstrates their skill set. And from the Baylor Bears, we're going to see a foot-to-hand combo here and a press-up, I believe, to an extended position. Solid on all ends, slight wobble there on the left side, but overall incredible control from our mid-layer bases here.
So that was Baylor in the synchronized pyramid, and let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time from the Baylor Bears.
This pyramid is impressive, and to do 2 at the same time with such tall mid-levels as well just adds to the look and the impressive nature of this pyramid. You'll see that these mid layers do get a slight bend in the knee, but majority of the power coming into this pyramid is from their arms. They are essentially, with a limited range of mobility, push pressing another athlete above their head, locking it out. Those bottom layers are staying super sturdy. Great timing on the synchronicity of that. Slight higher lift on the left side, but probably something you can only see from our angle as well.
So that was the Baylor Bears, a start value of 10, and actually both teams throughout the entire first half have start values of 10. So this is the highest level of competition. In the first half, you're going to see lots of start values of 10. Quinnipiac now coming back out, and it's going to be the open pyramid, which is the pyramid they have the most free reign with.
Bobcats taking a bit of time to make sure they are set and ready to go. There is a shot clock up in the arena here that does place a slight time emphasis on every heat that happens in these meets. However, most often everything is completed well in enough time unless there is an error or a fall of some sort. We see another extended pyramid. Great solid with a 180 dismount. And a great catch. Bobcats are excited about that one.
That was Quinnipiac in the open pyramid. Let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time.
This is the final heat of the pyramid event. The strong climb up. You do see a slight sway there from the bottoms to the mid-level. This pyramid does involve quite a bit of transition. You have the mount onto the pyramid, you then have the transition of the foot being placed in the hands, and then you do have the extension. So there's a lot of room for error here, and the Quinnipiac Bobcats do it really well. Number 30, our mid-layer, really does make sure to keep those feet stacked. She doesn't let them come all the way in front because she wants to make sure that top has a great solid line to go into the dismount.
Yeah, number 30 is Asia Johnson. She's a senior base from New Britain, Connecticut, and this year she was named NCATA All-American. Actually, someday, Asia Johnson, she wants to coach this sport, and you see that a lot from these student athletes. They give their heart and soul to this sport, and eventually they grow a really high acrobatics and tumbling IQ. And Asia Johnson, she's one of those athletes and wants to eventually hope to coach this day sometime. And again, in the pyramid event, there's a 45-second time limit. And here are the Baylor Bears for the open pyramid.
A different bottom than we've seen from the Baylor Bears bottom position, being the bridge that we saw earlier from the Quinnipiac Bobcats. You see that top take a quarter twist there before mounting the pyramid. That all factors into the difficulty and the start value of this pyramid. You then see a 360-degree dismount and a strong, solid landing. On the replay here, in a moment, we're going to take a look at that landing as the top comes around. First, this mid-layer level mounts with the bases assisting the foot placement. Foot placement on the bridge pyramid is so key to the success. Now, as we see our top load onto this pyramid, you'll see the mid-level really shrug up. That adds to the stability of this pyramid. Here on the dismount, watch the fight that goes into that right arm. Our athlete starts to over-rotate just a bit, and you can see her actively stop the rotation in order to not over-rotate in that pyramid.
So that'll do it for the pyramid event, which means that we are a half through this NCATA semifinal meet. We're going to step aside and take a break, but when we come back, we're going to have an interview with head coach Fee Mulkey of the Baylor Bears. Welcome back to Matthew Knight Arena, and let's go ahead and look at the scores for the pyramid event. So Baylor wins heat number 1 and heat number 2 in the pyramid event, 9.925 to 9.775, 9.850 to 9.675. Quinnipiac won the open pyramid heat, 9.700 to 9.875. That brings us to a total 97.825 for Baylor, 96.700 for Quinnipiac. And now we're going to welcome you, Matt Side, here at Matthew Knight Arena. Knight Uretsky, Alexis Cross, and Fee Mulkey, the head coach at Baylor. And coach, yesterday, an impressive first win against Converse. What did you see from your squad in that meet?
Oh man, it wasn't that great. But I mean, our second, we did well in the first half. Second half, we struggled a little bit, so we made some adjustments after and got our head right. And so hopefully you'll see a better second half today. Strong
first half from your squad here. What have you thought from your team's performance?
I am, the scores, the officials are doing a great job. They're being really consistent. I can see those deductions, I agree with those scores, and I can see the deductions. So I think their mindset's better today, so I think I'm most impressed with that, and they're having a blast over there. So we'll see if that'll carry us into the second half.
So fun to see, Coach. When you talk about the team event, going into making some adjustments today, what is the mentality you want to see your team go in with?
Trust your training. We've been doing this all year. Our practices are harder than any meet we'll ever be in. So go out and trust your training. That's what we talk about.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Good luck in the second half.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So that'll do it for the first half. Let's look at the score again. Baylor 97.825, Quinnipiac 96.700. And now we'll send it to another break, but when we come back, we're going to have an interview with interim head coach Cameron Diaz from Quinnipiac. Welcome back. Halftime, Baylor 97.825, Quinnipiac 96.700. Welcome back, Matt Side, Knight Uretsky, Alexis Cross, and interim coach Cameron Diaz. And right now in the first half, you guys are competing with the Baylor Bears. What have you liked from your squad?
Really consistent first half for us. I think it's one of our most consistent of the whole season so far. We had a few timing issues in our compulsory acro round, but I'm really proud of how they've come back. Really consistent scores across the board for us, and that's exactly what we want to do here today. So just come in, execute, keep the momentum going. So.
Impressive win against Oregon yesterday. What were you looking to improve upon today, and what have you seen from those improvements?
Definitely we had a few mistakes yesterday, so we definitely want to capitalize on those, especially in our team event. So that will be, our focus moving forward into today will be a stronger second half for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome. One to finish it up, we all know Marianne is an absolute legend in this sport. I'm such a personal fan. Without her here today, what are you trying to channel based on her leadership, on what you've learned from her as you step in today?
Yeah. Marianne is, I said yesterday, she is just the backbone of this program. We are so grateful for all of the hard work that she puts in every single day. We just want to come out here, do our best. We're just focused on us, focused on what we can do better, improve upon yesterday, and just have fun. That's, what it's all about. So,
love it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in the second half.
Thank you.
So that was head coach Cameron Diaz, who is the interim coach with Marianne Powers back in Connecticut. And let's go ahead and look at the schedule one more time. The event finals are going to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. That's 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then Baylor or Quinnipiac, whoever wins today, is going to face off against the 3-seeded Gannon Knights, who upset number 2 Azusa Pacific. And now we're going to step aside and take another break. But when we come back, we're going to have the triple T's of the second half: the toss, the tumbling, the team. Welcome back. Second half of the NCATA semifinal between Quinnipiac and Baylor about to take place. But let's go ahead and look at the scores again for the first half. In the compulsory event, Baylor 38.600, Quinnipiac 38.300. In the acro event, Baylor 29.575, Quinnipiac 29.250, and in the pyramid, 29.650 for Baylor, 29.150 for Quinnipiac. That brings us to a score 97.825 for Baylor, 96.700 for Quinnipiac. This one's really, really close. And let's go ahead and introduce you to the first event in the second half, which is the toss.
Next up is the toss event.
Here you will see a group of athletes toss another athlete into the air.
The top will perform a flip and or twist in the air before being caught.
There are 3 heats in this event.
Heat 1 is the salto toss. Heat 2 is the duo toss, in which 2 groups will need to throw synchronized identical skills, and the final heat is the open toss heat.
The start value of the toss depends on the skill that the top executes in the air.
The official will be looking for the height of the toss, the top's body position, and tight catches from the bases.
So now here's Quinnipiac with the 450 salto heat. This is in the toss event, and this is a 9.90 start value.
And here we're going to see an Arabian salto toss. Saw it warm up, and it was absolutely beautiful. Ooh, slight hit on the feet on the way through. It looked like it lost just a little bit of height. Great body position from the top. It just didn't look like it was quite high enough. On the replay, we'll take a look at it. They do still seem to be pretty happy about it, so this is definitely a super, super challenging skill with the full 360 rotation, as well as the double twist and the Arabian spin. Slight feet separation. It actually wasn't quite as bad from this angle as far as the sweep through. Just a little bit back. Overall, very challenging skill, one that we do not see as often as the double or the kick double. So fun to see it out there on the floor today.
So that was Quinnipiac in the 450 salto heat. And again, in the toss event, there are 3 heats: the 450 salto, the synchronized, and the open heat. Quinnipiac, they're going to have start values of 9.90 across the toss event. Baylor, they're going to have a start value of 9.90 in their first 2 heats, which are the 450 and the synchronized heats. Then in the open toss, they're going to actually have a start value of 10.0. This is really interesting because Baylor is not known for being a toss team, but they still feel confident enough to have a start value of 10.0 in the open toss. But before we get to the open toss, we still have a few more heats, and Baylor's going to come out for the 450 salto heat.
And here we're going to see a straight back double toss. It's definitely a signature in the toss event, a 9.9 start value. We're going to look for the top's feet to be together the whole time. You're going to look for a big stretch off the top. There's a slight dip in the catch there off the back left corner. We chatted earlier about the, in compulsory toss, the top's chest coming up at the end. That is something our judges are going to be honing in on in this toss event. So let's take a look at the replay here. We see arms straight by the ears and the chest come up. We don't really see the eyes come up here at the end in slow-mo. Right there, we should see that top's chest nice and proud as she settles into the catch there. I imagine she probably didn't do that because she takes off just a little bit to the back here. By lifting her eyes and her chest, it probably would have carried her further back. So again, you'll see these immediate adjustments that these athletes know to make almost instinctively in order to grab the most points possible.
Again, that was Baylor in the 450 salto, a start value of 9.90. Quinnipiac are waiting their turn at the synchronized toss, and now the Bobcats will come onto the mat.
Again, we see synchronization showing up here in the toss heat 2 of the toss event. Tosses are hard to synchronize. They are hard to synchronize when you have bases of different strengths and different sizes and tops of the same. Also different skill level. Another skill level is the top's ability to ride the toss, to have the patience. Some people compare it to diving, being able to ride the board all the way up the top. So we're gonna see a double toss here. Pretty good timing. I'm eager to watch it on the replay from the front. They seem to be happy about it. There were some pretty tall catches there. Not a lot of movement from the bases that I saw.
Let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time. Quinnipiac.
Great easy way to watch the toss event is to keep your eyes on the mat at the base's feet. There was a few steps there from the group on the left as she shifted backwards. Watch again closely on the left side. Right there you see about 3 shuffle steps, most likely one from each of the bases in order to make that adjustment. Big jump off the top and 1, 2, 3 steps there on the bottom. We'll probably see that in the score. However, the body positions from the tops were great, and we did see some chests up at the end.
That's Cassidy Osher right there, who was the top on the left side. Again, Cassidy Osher, 5th-year senior from Old Bridge, New Jersey, NCATA All-American. 2 times this season, she was NCATA Honorable Mention. And head coach Marianne Powers described her impact at Quinnipiac as, quote, legendary. Baylor going to come back onto the mat, and this is the synchronized toss heat. Again, a start value of 9.90 for the Baylor Bears.
We're going to see the same skill set here, a back double toss. There is room for continued innovation in the toss event. Right now there is only, to my knowledge, 2 skill sets that do score a 10. But the double toss, our toss on the right there was quite a bit higher. Both were beautiful. The unfortunate part with the synchronized event is that synchronization is really important. So we'll probably see that in the scores, and as we look to the replay, again, focus on that toss on the right. Beautiful stretch up from our top. She rides it all the way to the top, tight spin at the top of the toss, and then comes through with a great chest lift. Looking at the top on the left, she cuts that set off just a little bit more. I don't think we saw as much height come from the bases. Again, individually, beautiful tosses. Chests come up at the end, eyes come up. But unfortunately, putting them together, probably going to cost the Bears a little bit.
And that's exactly what you were talking about, where it's really hard to synchronize it when you have 2 bases with different heights. You have, or excuse me, tops with different heights and bases with different strengths. And so trying to get that synchronization part is really, really hard. And right there, Baylor struggled a little bit with it.
They did, and you really can see the strength of the different tops there. Our top on the right, her style of that toss was riding it to the top, spinning at the top, and kind of floating on the way down, where our top on the left had more of a continuous skill that happened the whole time. I believe we'll probably see that toss on the toss on the right come out again for the last heat. But here we have the Quinnipiac Bobcats coming out for toss heat 3.
And this is the open toss. So this is the toss that they have the most free reign with. Quinnipiac, they're going to keep a 9.90 start value.
We're going to see the same skill, a back double toss, this time face to the angle. The benefit here is it's harder to see feet separation and the pike through. If it's there, great catch, great lift and ride from the top. Slight pike over where you see her hips break mid-toss in order to get her feet through. However, her chest does come up at the end, so the strategic angle of that toss may do a good job of, again, playing to the strengths of the lift and the rise. So here we have a solid lift. Right there you see her hips pike just a bit in order to carry that rotation all the way through. Here we have it right there. But she does follow through nicely by bringing her eyes up. Here's a good side angle. This is where if they had put it to the side, you would really see that pike right there. The angle does help to hide it and really capitalizes on her good stretch in the beginning.
So that was Quinnipiac wrapping up their toss event. We still have one more heat, and it's coming from Baylor in the open toss. We heard a QU and then we heard a BU chant here at Matthew Knight Arena, which is great because we get fans from all over, and we're getting a lot of Quinnipiac fans and we're getting a lot of Baylor fans here. And it's really awesome that the fans are traveling for the NCATA National Championships. And now Baylor will come onto the mat for the open toss. This is the highest start value we've seen so far, a 10.0 start value for the Baylor Bears in the toss.
And it does look like we'll see a kick double toss here. Similar skill set with a kick added ahead of it. We'll be looking from the side view here for a distinct separation in the top's feet as she comes off the toss. And we saw it. That was definitely a kick. You saw that top's hip stay right over her bases the whole time. Slight feet separation on the way through at the end of the toss, but a beautiful kick in the beginning. An easy deduction to take here would be if our top lets her shoulders fall back off the toss. Let's see if she does. Got a dip. No, we have a very strong set. Really, that was a beautiful toss. I'm excited to see the score on that one. Kick. Her chest comes through in a great body position and a high catch from our bases. Let's watch their feet as they come around. They seem to be planted. That could be a great score. We'll see.
So that'll do it for the toss event. The scores are being tallied up right now, but don't go anywhere. We have the tumbling event coming up here at the NCATA quarterfinals, semifinals. We just wrapped up the toss event, and let's go ahead and look at the scores for the toss event. Baylor, 9.550, 9.425, and 9.775. All higher than Quinnipiac in all of the toss heats. That brings us to a total score 126.750 to 124.650. So still a really close meet here at Matthew Knight Arena. And now we have the tumbling event. So let's go ahead and introduce you to the tumbling.
This is the tumbling event.
This event has 6 heats. The start value of each heat is determined by the difficulty and combination of skills in each pass. The first 3 heats are synchronized, a duo, a trio, and a quad tumbling pass, in which all athletes in the group must execute the same tumbling pass from start to finish. The last 3 heats are individual tumbling passes with different requirements in each. The officials will be looking for form, execution, and proper technique of each skill.
So those are the rules for the tumbling, and we're going to start with the duo pass for Quinnipiac. They have a 10.0 start value. This is going to be Cassidy Osher and Farah Chernov.
Here we're going to see a whip Arabian through to full and a half. Looking for synchronization. Beautiful so far, and strong landings. Very controlled on the front. Little bit of a out of control extra power on the back there, but overall a beautiful pass. The synchronization is going to play to their strengths there. As we take a look at the replay, something to keep an eye on is the lift into that Arabian, the continuity here into the full and a half. Again, you can see that the player in the back, as she steps out of her full and a half at the end here, her back foot does come off the ground. That will be just a small deduction, Our judges are looking for a very controlled step out here. Our player in the front has a good example of that. Whoop, steps with her back foot staying on the ground, and that's something we want to see. They actually can get even so nitpicky as to require the back heel to stay on the ground. I know when I was an athlete, one of our teammates, that was our cue every time. We would all yell heel down, and she did it perfectly, of course, because she's amazing. But they can get that nitpicky with the scores.
So that was Quinnipiac in the duo pass. Now we're going to get Baylor in the duo pass, and it's going to be Kristen McLean and Emily Tobin.
Here we go with the duo. We're going to see the same whip Arabian through to full and a half. Again, looking for synchronization, especially in these bounding skills. The landings. Those were both great. That was beautiful as well. You see certainly another level of power from the Baylor Bears, but something they have to manage in those landings, and they did a great job of it there.
So that was the Baylor Bears in the duo pass, and let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time.
The whip into the Arabian skill to the round off back handspring full and a half. Here we see Emily's Arabian travel and carry her into her full and a half. Both of them really did a great job being prepared for that landing that was coming out. Watch their eyes as they come out of this full and a half. Here at the end, head comes around, it spots the mat, it spots the other team, and that front foot is ready to absorb the impact of their landing. And we see a great chest bump to finish it off.
So that was Emily Tobin and Kristen McCain. Now we're going to move to Quinnipiac in the trio pass. They're going to have a start value of 9.40, and we're going to see Kyla Roberts, Brianna Marks, and Bella Pierce.
We're going to see a lower start value with a whip to full and a half. They're going to be looking for really, really clean execution here. Huge emphasis on the timing together. Whip, whip, through to full and a half. Excuse me, there's only one whip there, but great controlled landings and timing. With a lower start value in that heat, they needed that in order to continue to compete.
So that was Quinnipiac in the trio pass, and let's go ahead and look at the replay one more time from the Bobcats.
So you'll see one bounding skill here, the whip featured right there that goes directly into the handsprings. One thing you see, beautiful back handspring positions from these athletes. You see them reach into the whip, and it almost looks the same going into the back handspring. That's what you want. You want the whip to be just enough higher that the hands don't touch right there, but the shape stays the same going into the back handspring. A beautiful arc in the back, keeping the momentum going without any lack of continuity, and a controlled step on the landing.
So that was Quinnipiac again. We're awaiting Baylor in the trio pass. For Baylor, we're going to see Katie Schiffer, Andrea Crittenden, and Tori Harris, for the Baylor Bears. You have two juniors and a senior. And in the trio, they're going to have a start value 9.60. Baylor across after this start value of 9.60. They're going to have start values of 10 in the rest of their quad passes. Alexis, talk about the differences in start values and why they matter so much in acrobatics and tumbling.
Differences in start value come from the way in which you pair your skills together. The elements you choose, the difficulty of those elements, and what value they hold. You have to be strategic on playing to the strengths of your team, and especially in these multiple group passes, like here we see the trio. These three athletes have to be able to execute this front handspring through to full and a half skill consistently enough in order to execute it. You also have to, these tumblers are probably some of the best on the team, as all are in this event. Some are skilled in areas that others are not. We'll take a look at the replay here in a moment, but it's a puzzle piece to determine how can you make sure that you get the highest start value in all of your heats while not losing or reusing your athletes. There are limitations in how many you can be in. So here we have a front handspring front punch skill, finishing to a full and a half. Slight synchronicity there at the end. This front handspring, front punch skill is a very gymnastics-based element. comes from the gymnastics background. You saw a slight bit of lack of control there on the landing, but they definitely hide it well. It's one thing our coaches stress a lot throughout the NCATA is the importance of managing a landing. The front skill, like I mentioned, is something that can be recruited for as other skills are throughout acrobatics and tumbling. It is definitely a skill we see in our tumbling event, but haven't seen yet today.
So that was Baylor in the trio pass. Quinnipiac, their women are awaiting on the practice mat, and now they're finally ready for them. So Quinnipiac's going to have a 9.50 start value for the quad pass. We're going to see Summer Knoll, Lindsay Rudolph, Layla Tracy, and Tiffany Zyba, for the Quinnipiac Bobcats.
And the tumbling pass we're going to see here is a round-off Arabian through to round-off handspring full and a half. Slight timing issues, but great landings. That was the lowest start value we've seen, but it made up for it in the cleanliness. We often see that in the quad pass, that it is the lower of the values most often. Not always, but you do have to have 4 athletes that can complete that pass consistently and effectively. And we saw them do it very well there. We'll take a look at the replay. The front 2 there were started at some great timing, and you see it shift. The speed in which these athletes go out of their Arabian and into the rest of the pass. You see our 2 athletes in the middle stay on time pretty well, where the 2 on either end tend to go a bit faster and a bit slower, it seems. A lot of people may think that's consistent, that certain athletes are faster tumblers than the others. And while that's true, there's also the element of each individual skill, where coming out of that Arabian skill, the aerial skill, propelling them into the rest of the pass, if you under-rotate to any degree, it's going to slow your speed and your tempo. You can build that speed back up, but the speed in which you have to do that, oftentimes you are left behind the timing. So it does depend on how well each skill is executed in order to maintain the speed in which the full group has kind of agreed to go. There are discussions, and I imagine this Baylor team has them, about fast tumblers needing to slow down and slow tumblers needing to speed up in order to keep this timing consistent for these passes.
So here's going to be Baylor in the quad pass. They have a start value of 10.0.
An amazing start value. We have a punch front, through to full and a half, through to full from the Baylor Bears with a beautiful landing. Amazing to see there. Everyone catch up to each other. You saw some separation in the 2 big, powerful aerial skills there, and fun to see them all kind of come together and land at the same time. Let's take a look at the replay. This is more elements in this skill. Punch front through to full and a half, round off full. Again, they land together. You'll start to see separation right out of the punch front there in the middle, a little bit slower. She picks it up there with a great step out of the full and a half that catches her up to the rest of the group. Here we have it again. You're missing a bit of sets there on the end. A set is when an athlete goes into any aerial skill and they're looking for them to stack shoulders on top of knees, on top of toes, and get the biggest amount of lift into the aerial skill possible with the arms by the ears. That's a good set. When a broken set is when the shoulders kind of fall backwards and the elbows stick out to the side. That cuts off your height and your power. And again, it's easy to get nitpicky on that, so that's something our judges are probably looking for.
So that'll do it for the team portion of the tumbling event. Now it's going to be the solo portion. We're going to start with Quinnipiac, a start value of 10.0 for Farah Chernov.
And here we'll see a front through to full and a half, through to full. A beautiful pass and a beautiful landing from the Quinnipiac Bobcats.
Yeah, Chernov gave 2 thumbs up on that one.
She sure did. She sure did. From my angle, gosh, her feet being together, her toes being pointed, and her knees being locked out looked like some really strong suits of this pass. You can see that happen. Soft knees is what people refer to when when in a twisting skill like that, the knees are just a bit bent, and we don't see that from number 24. We do see very strong knees in her aerial twisting skills right there. Good step out, continuity, and again into the full and a half, chest up tall, and a good controlled step back. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up indeed. So that was Quinnipiac with the aerial pass. Baylor awaiting their turn at the aerial pass. We're going to see Kristen McCain, the sophomore. McCain, Coach Feet Mulkey was really, really high on. She called her a vocal leader on the sideline. She said that just people love to gravitate to her and people love to follow her on this team. We saw McCain in the duo with Emily Tobin. We're going to see Tobin again in the 6 element for Baylor, but here's going to be McCain, the sophomore.
And doing a different pass than we saw earlier. This will be a full and a half through to whip full, ending in a bounding skill. Whip full. Beautiful. She loves that, and there's a reason to, because that was absolutely beautiful. A very, very strong showing of the change in elevation we should see in every tumbling pass, a lift in every aerial skill. And as we take a look at the replay, I'll tell you exactly where we want to see that. There and there. A change in elevation, a rise in the height of which that happens. Beautiful stretch into the full and a half. Super, super good step out, and a very controlled landing there. Taking a look at her feet as they hit the ground. Glued together. Chest comes around nice and tall. I love seeing the athletes hug their coaches, and you can tell on the coaches and the athletes' face when they really took it to the next level.
I definitely agree. I think that's a really awesome part of acrobatics and tumbling, is that you get to hug your coach right afterwards. I think of acrobatics and tumbling as a real big family atmosphere, and I think just having the coach there to hug you once you complete your skill is really adding to that family aspect.
Right, and you think about the mental aspect of this. There are times when things don't go quite right, and it doesn't mean you don't get a hug. Here we see Quinnipiac with a whip Arabian through to full and a half. Beautiful skill. Slight drag on the end of her pass into her step out, which we saw in contrast from what we just saw from Baylor with the very controlled 2 feet together, 1 step forward. Here we saw the back foot drag just a little bit, which means she had tons of power, which is a great thing. But again, we talk about managing that power. We did see beautiful lifts in the aerial skills here. Right there into the whip Arabian, and right there into the full and a half, a strong lift and a very beautiful pass.
That was Cassidy Osher, the graduate senior. She had a start value of 10.0 in the 6 element pass. And like I just said, we saw Kristen McCain in the duo pass with Emily Tobin, and now we see Emily Tobin in the 6 element acro, excuse me, not 6 element acro, 6 element pass for the tumbling event. She's also going to have a start value of 10.0.
Emily will come from the horizontal side. We're going to see a whip Arabian through to full and a half here again. A staple pass, as there's limited elements in this pass. A lift into the Arabian, and a strong full and a half with a controlled landing. Beautiful pass. Emily's height plays to her advantage here, in that it is easier for her as someone who's a bit shorter to fit this pass and other passes on the mat. You'll see the athletes timing their runs onto the mat, and some of them really limit the steps in which they take in order to fit the entire with more elements. There is a deduction for landing off the floor or landing and stepping off the floor. We have Emily with a beautiful landing in the 1.5. Slight deviation of that step just over to the right a bit. Again, we can see that from this angle. Not sure what the judges are able to see. She has a beautiful lift into the full 1.5. Little bit of a soft knees. And a slight deviation of that step going to the kind of right upper hand corner if you drew a box. But overall, I think she was happy with it.
And that was Emily Tobin. She's the junior from Templeton, California, 2-time NCATA All-American the past 2 seasons. We've seen her throughout the night, and she's been so impressive. Now for Quinnipiac, we're going to see Layla Tracy, who we saw in the quad pass. She's now going to be competing in the open pass for Quinnipiac with a start value of 10.0.
We're going to see an Arabian through to full and a half, through to a full. Very solid step out at the end. Incredible power from this athlete. Her team is really proud of her. She seems to be happy with it. Excitement from the Quinnipiac Bobcats. We take a look at the replay. You see the diagonal, a great lift into that Arabian, slightly less of a lift into these last two skills. And we do see some soft knees in the majority of the aerial skills here. However, the continuity of her power and the step outs is there, and the controlled landing with the chest tall definitely plays to the strengths. Good reach over the top. Chest up, controlled landing.
So that'll wrap up Quinnipiac's tumbling event. We still have one more heat, and it's from Baylor. They're going to have their open pass, and then right after their open pass, it'll be the team event, which is the final event in an acrobatics and tumbling meet. Here's going to be Bree Harris, the graduate student for Baylor in the open tumbling with a start value of 10.0.
We're going to see a front punch into a full and a half. Beautiful step out into a full with a solid landing. Wow, we talk about the lift in the aerial skills, and I don't think we can see it any more clearly than we just did with number 27 from the Baylor Bears.
Again, 27's Bree Harris. She also competed in the quad for Baylor and then came out here in the open, and it was really impressive. Let's look at the replay one more time.
Beautiful punch front into an extremely high full at the end of this tumbling pass. Her speed stays consistent through the whole pass. You see her manage the incredible height of the full and a half in the middle of this pass. Right, going into it now. In this skill, she opens up knowing she's high, knowing that if she hangs on to it, her feet are going to continue to rotate. And an athlete like that with that much power, it's easy to over-rotate. And I imagine challenging to time with other athletes because she is just so powerful.
So that'll do it for the tumbling event, meaning that we only have one more event to go, and that is the team event. So we're going to step aside, take a break while they tally up the tumbling scores, and then we'll be back for the team event. Through this semifinal matchup between Baylor and Quinnipiac, and let's go ahead and look at the scores for the tumbling. Baylor able to claim victory in every single heat but the sixth element. Quinnipiac won the sixth element 9.800 to 9.700 for Baylor. But other than that, the Baylor Bears did really, really well in the tumbling. Outscored Quinnipiac as a whole 57.675 to 56.200. That brings us to a score 184.250 to 180.850. So the lead for Baylor getting a little bit larger, but nonetheless still within reach as we head towards the team event. And speaking of the team event, let's go ahead and introduce the team event coming up.
The last event is the team event.
This is a very fast-paced event, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled.
The team event features up to 24 athletes on the floor, performing synchronized acro, pyramid, toss, and tumbling in a routine set to music lasting no more than 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
In the team event, the officials are looking for the stability of the structures, body positioning, and the technique of the tumbling.
So those are the rules for the team event, and the team event is what we like to call 2 minutes and 45 seconds of organized chaos. There's going to be a lot happening on the mat at the same time, and this is the event that really determines a lot of acrobatics and tumbling meets.
It sure does. You can feel the energy in the room picking up because the team event makes or breaks the wins and losses in acrobatics and tumbling. There is most often over 100 points up for grabs in the team event, and there's a lot of points to lose too. There's a lot of stuff going on. It requires incredible concentration, synchronization. One small error can cause a chain reaction of a lot of others. So the mentality is important. The enthusiasm is important, the energy is important, and the skill set is important. So we're going to see a variety of different skills, a culmination of what we've seen throughout the meet, and I'm excited.
I'm very excited too, and you mentioned a lot of these scores are over 100. Both teams have start values of over 100 points. Quinnipiac, they're gonna have a start value of 106.76. Baylor, a start value of 108.51. So there are optional skills in the team event, and each team declares optional skills, and because of those optional skills, they're able to have higher start values in the team event. Still though, pretty similar. Baylor just a little bit higher. And with Quinnipiac, they're down by about 4 right now, 4 points that is. And in the team event, like we said, there's 106.76 points to be claimed for Quinnipiac. And right now, they're still reviewing scores for the toss event. Quinnipiac is protesting their scores. Right now, they're looking to gain a little bit more points. But let's go ahead and look at the schedule for tomorrow one more time while they do that. And again, Gannon earlier today knocked off number 2 Azusa Pacific, meaning that the winner of this meet, Baylor versus Quinnipiac, will face off against Gannon tomorrow at 7 p.m. But before the final meet of the season, we have the event finals, which is at 11 a.m. And I think the event finals are really exciting and maybe even more exciting than the final meet.
They are very exciting. I don't know if I'd say more because it's not the national championship. However, there's the opportunity for any school in the NCATA to qualify and win an individual national title. So we will oftentimes see teams who are not included in the 8 that are in the tournament, but they are able to qualify for just one event final and send those athletes to the national tournament. So really definitely a fun event. We're now shifting gears to the Quinnipiac Bobcats and their team event.
Yes, so this is going to be Quinnipiac again. 106.76 is the start value. 2 minutes and 45 seconds of organized chaos. We'll catch you on the flip side of the team event. That was Quinnipiac in the team event. The Bobcats on the mat for the final time tonight, hoping to score a lot of points and hoping to come back against the Baylor Bears.
It's always fun to watch the energy that happens throughout, the encouragement from the teammates both on the sideline and on the mat. A near perfect performance from the Quinnipiac Bobcats with some minor issues. Unfortunately, one fall. We're going to take a look up close with some replays now. Here we have the tumbling sequence starting out. You have standing full tucks over on the right side. That's a 10.0 start value for a standing tumbling skill with only 2 skills involved. So done correctly, they add a lot of points on the board. You have full offs down at the back, which are really, really well done. And one thing that stuck out to me throughout this entire routine was the strength of the landings from the Quinnipiac Bobcats. You saw a slight bobble and a timing issue in the pop-arounds here in the second acro sequence, lacking some tuck, some sets for the tucks in the back, but great landings. In every corner here, you see these athletes land and step forward. I was very impressed with the controlled step outs of the majority of these landings. A lot of times in the team event, you'll see off the mats or uncontrolled landings. A lot of these were very, very controlled, and when there's a ton going on and our judges are having to keep an eye on things, watching the corners is often what they do, so cleaning up the ends of those passes. Watch on the right here, we have that salto to Arabian toss. It's a beautiful finish, a slight drop in the catch on the back, and slight feet separation, big group hug to finish it off. No matter what, I hope they're happy with that one, because regardless, it was still a great showing.
So that was the Quinnipiac Bobcats. Let's go ahead and look at the scores one more time. So again, Quinnipiac currently trailing Baylor 184.250 to 180.850. Baylor has claimed every single event yet, so the Bobcats are hoping to break the spell here in the team event and reclaim the lead. And earlier this year against Baylor, Quinnipiac had their season high against the Bears, and so they had a 280 performance against Baylor then. Right now, they have a chance for 280. They have 106.76 points to be earned. Right now, they're at 180.85, so they have a potential chance to reach that 280 mark. It's up to the officials now. Baylor awaiting their turn at the team event, which we'll get to momentarily. But Lexi, before we get to that, can you just talk about what these officials are looking for in the team event and how the team event is scored?
Yeah, great question, Knight. The team event, as you mentioned, is the highest point value in the meet. And each official is assigned a portion of the floor to keep their eyes on throughout the entire team event. Ahead of time, they know what skills they're going to see. Our coaches have a signified time in which they have to submit a file that lets the judges know what skills are going to be performed. The judges then know what to look out for, and throughout the team event, and as you mentioned, live action, they keep track of deductions that they see. All the things we've talked about today, feet apart, steps, body positions, lack of continuity in the tumbling, lack of synchronization, all of those are things that they're looking at, and they are just assigned their 3 panels of the floor in order to be responsible for. So there's a ton of strategy in how our coaches put together this team event in a way that probably hides their not perfect skills and showcases the skills that they feel really, really good about.
Absolutely. Again, this is the team event. Quinnipiac just competed on the mat. They finished up their entire meet. Now it's up to the officials and also how well Baylor could execute. Baylor's going to come onto the mat now. 108.51 start value for the Baylor Bears. And although they have the lead right now, this is still anyone's game. Baylor has to execute right now. They're on the mat, and we'll catch you at the flip side of the team event for the Baylor Bears. So that was the Baylor Bears in the team event, wrapping up this acrobatics and tumbling meet.
Tons of energy from the Baylor Bears. You could feel it. I feel like I was in it right here sitting on the field, on the mat, wherever we are. The crowd was engaged. Definitely they were locked in. Let's take a look. Strong opening from the Bears. You do see a stumble off the mat there on the left. That is a deduction, although it was just 1 foot, which is a smaller deduction than if she had landed with 2 feet off the mat. Into the standing tumbling sequence. Some definite synchronization errors. Emily Tobin did a great job catching up. That's where things can get dangerous, is synchronization in the tight quarters like that. The last thing you want is someone getting hit. Here we move into the pyramid section. Keep an eye on the pyramids on the left here. We see an excellent fight from this group where, again, that top sinks that back onto her heels. She has to hold her legs up and really manipulate the position. You then see a pretty stark drop on Emily Tobin's toes as they come off the front of that hand-in-hand pyramid. Minor errors in the grand scheme of things, although they could have turned into major ones. Into running tumbling. See them transition in the back to some toss sequences. 2 kick doubles. Synchronization wasn't great, but the difficulty is there with the kick doubles. Pass on the right. You'll see, couldn't quite see her finish, but there was another off the mat on both sides. Here we have the ending into, again, an incredible acro sequence you saw going up on the right. A dance that looks like they're having a pretty good time doing it. Fun to see the personalities come out at the end. And Baylor's signature sick 'em.
So that'll do it for the team event, meaning that we are all done all the competition. Both teams have left it on the mat. Now it's up to the officials. They're scoring up the final team scores right now. We're going to step aside and take our final break of the night. But when we come back, we'll announce the team scores and who's moving on to take on Gannon tomorrow night. And there's the Baylor Bears right there celebrating their victory. They just announced the team event scores. Baylor 89.35, Quinnipiac 88.31. That brings us to a total Baylor 273.60 to Quinnipiac 269.160. Baylor's going to move on. They're going to be playing in the championship, and what's new for the Baylor Bears? But this time they're going up against the Gannon Knights. But again, Baylor going to be in another national championship. Fee Mulkey, she just always finds her way to the championship.
She sure does, and it is not without incredible amount of work and talent in which the Baylor Bears make their way there. We saw some really impressive stuff tonight from both teams, and I believe we'll see it again tomorrow.
You can see Coach Mulkey right there, putting on the sticker. Now Emily Tobin. The Baylor Bears are advancing, and they're going to face off against Gannon, and boy, oh boy, is that one going to be exciting. Fee Mulkey versus Jackie Eshelman. Eshelman, a former athlete under Fee Mulkey. And let's go ahead and look at the final scores one more time for this meet. Baylor, straight victories across the board, won every single event. And ultimately, at the very end, 273.600 to 269.160. The Baylor Bears down the Quinnipiac Bobcats. Let's go ahead and look at the schedule again for tomorrow. And at 11 a.m. we'll be back. It's the event finals, which, like we've said, a lot more teams that you haven't seen compete so far in the national championships. They're going to be in the event finals competing for individual national championships in every single event. And then tomorrow at 7 p.m., number 1 Baylor versus number 3 Gannon. So that'll do it for us here at the NCATA National Championships. We'll see you tomorrow for Gannon versus Baylor.